This next sutram which we are going to study now is a sutram which prescribes the affix ninihi as well as the affix khash. Nini as well as khash. We have studied both these affixes before when we derived janame jayaha. At that time we used the affix khash by the sutram 3 to 28 aj khash. And recently when we derived the form ushnabhoji, we used the affix nini. Now this sutram which we are going to study now prescribes both these affixes. Both these can be used alternately. And the sutram here is atmamane khascha. Atmamane khascha. Sutram is 3 to 83. 3 to 83. This sutram is right before the adhikara of bhute, which starts from 3 to 84. Always keep a track of the adhikara in Yashtadhyayi. So 3 to 84 is the important adhikara of bhute, which is going to start soon. But right before that comes this sutram 3 to 83, which is atmamane khascha. Vritti of the sutram says swakarma ke manane vartamanan manyate supi khash syat. So this also has the requirement that there should be a subantam upapadam, but the important condition here is as atmamane. Atmamane. Atmamane, when one considers oneself to be something or someone, when the agent of the action consider himself or herself to be something or someone, then only this sutram may be applied. So atmane means swakarmake. Yes, swakarmake means karta eva karma yasya. So the agent himself, herself should also be the object of the thinking. So one considers oneself to be someone or something. And this sutram applies only after the specific verbal root from the divadiganaha, which is manajnane. Manajnane from the divadiganaha. That is a single verbal root which takes the affix nini or the affix khash. Alternately khash. There will be two alternate forms in this special sense of atmamane. Now here also the sutram 3467 kartrikrit still applies. Kartrikrit. So this is the agent of the action, the agent of thinking, the one who's thinking, but he is also thinking himself or herself. He or she is thinking himself or herself to be someone or something. In a special meaning, this sutram is used. So the vritti further says chan ninihi. Chan ninihi means that in the sutram the cha shabda has been used. Cha means also. So when Panini says khashcha, he means khash is also used. Khash is also used means what? Anuvritti of nini is already coming down from 3 to 78, which we have studied. So khash may also be used means khash is used in addition to nini. That is what the meaning is. So a quick example here is Panditam Atmanam Manyate. Iti Panditam Manyaha Athava Panditamani. Someone who considers himself or herself to be a scholar. So when considers himself to be a scholar is Panditam Manyaha Athva Panditamani. When the affix khash is used, we get the form Panditam Manyaha. When the affix nini is used, we get the form Panditamani. Now the form Panditamani is very straightforward, very similar to what we just derived. We just derived the form Ushnabhoji. Ushnabhoji we have recently derived, and only difference between Ushnabhoji and Panditamani in terms of derivation. In terms of the derivation, is that instead of using Puganta Lagu Patasya cha, which we did in the case of Ushnabhoji, in Panditamani we use Atopadhayaha. Ata upadhayaha 72116. 72116 is to use to do the upada vriddhi to get panditamani. So we won't repeat all the steps again. The steps for deriving panditamani are the same steps as for deriving ushnabhoji, except that in panditamani we have to use Ata upadhayaha 72116 to do the vriddhyadesha, upada vriddhyadesha, the penultimate akara of man. That akara takes the vridya adesha by 72116. So the steps are all the same. Of course, in the case of Ushnabhoji, we use the sutrams 3 to 78 to bring in the affix nini. In the case of Panditamani, we use the sutram 3 to 83. Atmamane khascha. But the remaining derivation is the same, except in Panditamani we use Atupadhaya instead of the Puganta Lagupatasya, which we use in the case of Ushnabhoji. Okay, now Panditam Manyaha also the steps are similar to those in the example Janame Jayaha, which we drive. Janame Jayaha. Only difference here is that this Dhatuhu Man, as we just said, belongs to the Divadiganaha, while the Dhatu Ji, when we derived Janame Jayaha, that belongs to the Bhvadiganaha. That is the one big difference in the derivation. Otherwise, the steps are generally the same. So, we start the derivation with Pandita Nyas plus Man plus Khash. Pandita Nyas Man plus Khash. Just as before, we use the affix Nyas with the karma, which is Pandita, by Kartakarmanoh Kriti 2365. We use the Shashti Ekavachanam. And then we bring in this affix Khash by this sutram Atmane Khashcha. So we have Pandita Nyas Man plus Khash. Pandita Nyas is the Upapadam, because Anuvritti of Supi is coming into Atmane Khashcha. And now what happens is that this affix Khash has a sanya of Sarvadhatukam by Tingshit Sarvadhatukam. Tingshit Sarvadhatukam. We can remove these letters by Lashakvatadite Khakarasit sanya, and by Halantyam Shakarasit sanya, and Tasya Lopaha. So we get Pandita Nyas plus Man O. And because this affix Khash has a sanya of Sarvadhatukam by Tingshit Sarvadhatukam 34113, therefore we can now bring in Divadibhyashan. Normally Kartari Shap would apply, but this Dhatu Manajnane, which we are using, belongs to Divadiganaha. So the Apavada of Kartari Shap, which is Divadibhyashan, applies here. Remember, Kartari Shap only applies, of course, Kartari and Sarvadhatuke. So because Khash has sanya of Sarvadhatukam, Kartari Shab becomes applicable, but then the Apavadaha Divadibhyashan comes in. And so now what do we have now? We have Pandita Nyas plus Man plus Shan plus A. And now we remove the letters of Shan by Lashakvatadjite Shakara Sahit Sanya and Halantyam Nakara Sahit Sanya Tasya Lopaha. So now we get Anubandha Lope Pandita Nyas Man Ya A. And after that we do the Puraparayoho Ekadeshaha, which is the Pararupam Ekadeshaha by Atogune. By Atogune, the ending Akaraha of Ya and the Akara of that Khash Pratyaha, in the place of both of them we put a Ekadesha, single substitute, which is the Pararupam, which is the Akara of Khash. So we get Pandita Nyas Manya. Manya by Atogune we do Puraparayoho Ekadesha, Pararupam Ekadesha. In place of A plus A we put the Akaradesha. And remaining steps are very similar to what we have been doing so far. So we form the compound between Pandita Nyas plus Manya, which is the Kridantam, using the sutram Upapadam Ating. Upapadam Ating we form Upapada-samasaha, and Pandita Nyas, which is the Upapadam, gets the Upasajana Sanya by Prathamanidishtam Samasa Upasajanam, then Upasajanam Purvam 2 to 30. Put Pandita Nyas as the prior member of the compound, so we get Pandita Nyas Manya. Now the Samudayaha, the entire term Pandita Nyas plus Manya, gets the Pratipadika Sanya by Krit Tadita Samasascha, because we just formed a Samasa using 2 to 19. Upapadam Ating, which is a Samasa Vidhayaka Sutram. So Pandita Nyas Manya has a Samasa Sanya, and therefore it gets the Pratipadika Sanya by Krit Tadita Samasascha, which is 1 to 46. And then the Nyas affix takes the look elision by Supo Dhatu Pratipadika Yoho. So we get Pandita Manya. The Uttarapadam Manya ends in the affix Khash, ends in a Kit affix. So it's the Kidantam Uttarapadam. In the compound, the Uttarapadam, the latter member of the compound, is Manya, which ends in a Kit affix. So therefore, we bring the Mum Agamaha to the Purapadam by the sutram Ardvisha Dajantasya Mum, because Pandita ends in akara, ends in a akara, which is a ach letter. So it's the mum agamaha by midachoantyat paraha. The mum agamaha joins after the ending vowel, which is the ending akara of Pandita. So we get Pandita mum manya. Remove these letters by halantyam makarasit sanya, then upadeshe janu nasika it, ukarasit sanya, and then anubandha lope makaraha. So we get Panditam manya. Panditam manya. And here also we can do the monuswara because Panditam has the padasanya by supting antam padam 1414 with the help of pratyaya lope pratyaya lakshanam. The yes pratyaya which took the look illusion leaves a lakshanam behind, so Panditam gets the padasanya by supting antam padam with the help of pratyaya lope pratyaya lakshanam. Now we do the anuswaradeshaha and followed by the vikalpena parasavarnadeshaha vapadantasya 8459. So we get Panditam manya and Panditam manya. And this is the adjectival form decline in all three genders. If we take pullinge prathama ekvacham, it becomes Panditam manyaha. So these are two forms which are Panditam manyaha, and then we also have the affix nini when we used, so we get the form Panditamani. So Panditamani when we use the affix nini. So this is the sutram Atmamane Khascha. Now one thing here is that this sutram only applies when one thinks of oneself to be someone or something. The prior sutram actually applies when one thinks of somebody else to be something. The prior sutram is manaha. Similar application, it also applies only in the case of the specific verbal root manajnane or the divadiganaha, but that is when you think of somebody else to be someone or something. For example, pituho pandita mani aham. So I consider my father to be a scholar. So pituho Panditamani aham. So in that case, we cannot use the affix khash because in the prior sutram 3282 only the affix nini is prescribed, not khash. Khash can only be used only when one thinks of oneself to be someone or something. So when one thinks of oneself to be someone or something, we can use khash as well as nini. But when one thinks of someone else to be someone or something, then only nini may be used. So pituhu panditamanyaham. I consider my father to be a scholar. In that case, I cannot use khash, I have to use nini. So that is the difference between these two rules, 3282 and 3283. 3283 prescribes khash as well as nini, but the condition is that the doer, means the thinker, has to think of himself to be someone or something, while the prior sutram manaha prescribes only nini, and that is when the thinker thinks of somebody else to be someone or something.